Betty and Veronica Double Digest 234. Sabrina asks Hilda what's happening to her, and asks if she should call the paranormal paramedics. But somehow Hilda insists that she's fine as she looks silly. I guess the reason she'd think they'd be necessary is that she thinks she ingested some potion ingredients, and so they would stay in her system, and so pointing would cure her. Hilda says that since she doesn't understand why Sabrina spends so much time with mortals, even though she would have told her they're her friends, she whipped up a disguise spell, so she turns herself into a teenage girl so that she can join Sabrina at the lake without standing out among her friends. And Sabrina says she'd only fit in if they do a swimsuit calendar. But for some reason, she's not immediately told that she has to wear something more than just a swimsuit. Since Sabrina's smiling, I have to assume that the reason she's not correcting her is that she thinks this is going to be funny. But it should be immediately obvious that she'd just distract all of the guys away from her with her good looks. And Sabrina doesn't need any competition for Harvey. Hilda somehow thinks she's being stared at for being even more hideous than she thought. Even though after all the years she's lived on Earth, she'd know by now what mortals consider to be beautiful. Sabrina tells her to go join Harvey and Amy with her. And Amy has blonde hair, like the mean girl from the 90s comic. Although I'm pretty sure it's a different shade of yellow. Amy isn't happy to see this cousin Hildy because she's even more competition for Harvey. Harvey hopes that she isn't named after Hilda, calling her a nasty old crone. And Hilda says he's flattering her, which would make herself look weird in front of them, obviously. And she'd also know better than to ask him what kind of spell he's brewing when she knows he's immortal. And her whole mission was to avoid standing out among her friends. Harvey says that some people say he makes the best chili in town. At least now he's got something that makes him different from Archie. Hilda hates it and tells him rudely that he needs to upgrade his social circle, so she uses magic to make the chili too spicy. It'd also be common sense of her to not use magic if she wants to avoid standing out and see what Sabrina sees in them. I guess she assumes they won't figure out it's her. It'd be even more obvious that she has to simply follow behind Sabrina while invisible, which would give her the answers just fine. It'd be easier to understand why she's doing this if it was explained that she just wanted to mess with Harvey in a disguise and see how she'd be treated if she looked different. Maybe she was just lying to Sabrina about her excuse earlier. Someone says that these beautiful maidens are wasted on Harvey and deserve better. And Reggie's the one who said that. Hilda tells him off, calling him trash. Amy giggles and says they should go, but she means go with Reggie, who is somehow not offended at being called trash for having an ego, and instead tells them that they'll love going windsurfing with him. It's so convenient that Amy's hanging out with the Archie gang when she literally never did that before. I guess she moved here. Hilda asks what about Sabrina, and smiles when she's told that she already has her hands full because Harvey is being held while he's trying to pull a tool away from a monster. You'd think Sabrina would have pointed and instantly gotten rid of the monster and erased everyone's memory of the very obviously magical thing that happened that should be freaking everyone out. I have to assume that people not realizing this is magical is all a part of the chili monster spell. Reggie says that there isn't enough wind to surf today. He should have known that earlier. He should have thought of that before he talked to them. Hilda uses magic to humiliate him. Amy says they have a lot in common, and asks her how close she is to Sabrina. This is kind of heartwarming. Normally, if Amy from the 90s comic met 70s Hilda, she'd just call her ugly and that's it. Amy irritates Hilda when she says that she was wondering if she'd like to play a practical joke and help her steal Harvey from her. Hilda says they have a lot in common because they're both Two-Faced, even though Hilda clearly isn't Two-Faced. She's always honest about being sassy, and she just looks different right now. And she uses magic on her, proving her loyalty to Sabrina. It's kind of surprising because she hates Harvey, so you'd think she'd love to help Amy, because then he wouldn't be dating Sabrina anymore being clumsy in her house. But Hilda probably realizes that Sabrina would use her magic to prevent Amy from getting what she wants anyways. So literally all that humoring Amy would accomplish is getting Sabrina to feel betrayed. Hilda says that the reason Sabrina hangs out with mortals is that they're good for a laugh, even though obviously that's not why Sabrina hangs out with them. And she'd know that. So the story ends with Amy being freaked out at being turned into a two-headed orange monster. This story at first had me assume it'd be an arbitrary plot where Hilda's transforming went out of control because of a witch illness. Hilda wants to see why Sabrina spends so much time with mortals, even though she'd know that. So she disguises herself as a normal teenage girl, but she'd obviously have a way easier time finding out her answers by simply asking Sabrina why she likes them, or spying on them while invisible. Hilda makes a fool out of herself, calling Harvey a flatterer for insulting Hilda, and asking what spell he's making when he sees his chili, when she knows he's a mortal. And somehow he doesn't properly comment on it, because I guess he figures that she was being snarky and witty when she called it brew. She also doesn't immediately get told to wear more than just a bathing suit, when Sabrina's had plenty of experience with pretty girls stealing Harvey's attention from her. Sabrina and Hilda look really stupid here. Hilda's somehow not even trying to blend in and using no common sense. I have to assume that she never actually cared about that, and it was just an excuse she told Sabrina to get away with messing with her friends in a disguise. It was awesome that she stood up to Amy when she said she wanted to steal Harvey from her. I also liked that she was called Amy and acted like the Amy from the 90s comic. I only say she's not her because since when would she be with the Archie gang? Reggie barely did anything to deserve being messed with. But he was annoying being arrogant for no reason, and he's done plenty to annoy me already. I don't understand why Sabrina didn't just instantly get rid of the monster Hilda summoned, because she could make everyone forget anyways. It's an interesting and fun story. I got to see what it'd be like if Hilda had the common sense to give herself a good appearance in the 70s comic. Betty and Veronica Double Digest 241. After a pointless, boring page where Archie gets distracted by another girl in front of Veronica and Betty forgives him because he can't change, Sabrina walks in to Pop Dates and wonders what they're up to. Veronica lampshades that they're trying to figure out what they see in this clod. And Betty asks why Archie never went after Sabrina. They trust him not to go after her after Betty says she's pretty and smart, just because we never saw him do that more than once in the 70s comic. Also, Sabrina's not smart. But to be fair, they wouldn't know that. We know she's not smart because we see her make tons of impulsive, dumb decisions with her magic. But all anyone else would see is that she gets good grades and isn't talking like Melody. Still, it always annoys me when a character shills Sabrina as smart for no reason. Like the writer's either an idiot or thinks we're idiots. And she could easily not be called that. Archie remembers when he and Sabrina did have a thing going, last year, while wisely not telling Betty about that. But instead of wasting our time reiterating the time they went on a date in the 70s Sabrina comic, we see Betty and Veronica arguing over who gets to take Archie to the prom. Archie hears Sabrina say she's not going through this with Harvey again, whatever that is. And he breaks up with her, and she just stays mad and is fine with this. First off, it'd be supremely lazy to never explain why she and Harvey, the official couple from the 70s, would break up. How do you not realize how seriously the fans take this ship? I mean, I assume they would, because of how old it is. Why waste his character? It's interesting how she reacts to the breakup in a completely new way, by not caring. But it's only not out of character because we can assume she just had a very good reason to be through with him. I have to assume it's because he was cheating on her, because he did it before. She sees Archie, it skips to her agreeing to go out with him. And the writer annoys me unnecessarily by having her say he just has to meet her aunts first. First off, why would you think he has to meet her aunts? Second, why are you pretending that he never met her aunts? This doesn't make any sense. They've known each other since they were kids in Little Sabrina. But apparently not in this universe because she has colored eyes. So this is 90s Sabrina. And yet, her aunts look like they do in the 70s. Or rather, their Uncanny Valley slightly better looking designs from the Gravestone Heights days. Hilda says her dumping Harvey is great news. And Sabrina's glad that she's thrilled, instead of uncomfortable because she always wanted to contrast her and already missing Harvey. Sabrina hopes Hilda would like Archie, and Hilda doesn't know him. So she says that as long as he's a witch, she'll be fine. This would only make sense if it was either a prequel to the Gravestone Heights arc, showing when Sabrina first moved to Riverdale, or it's another universe from every other story. Because how could Hilda not know about Archie when Sabrina's been dating Harvey for quite a while? I like that when Hilda says she should stick with her own kind, Sabrina says that's bigoted. I'm not sure she would have been written to say the word bigoted if this was the 70s. But still, I appreciate the effort to imitate the 70s style instead of being bad for once. But it's constantly distracting that Sabrina has collared eyes. Why her and not her aunts too if obviously she has those and not the mortals because she's a witch? She says there aren't any warlocks to date in mortal school, and Zelda thankfully says she has a point. I'm still missing her glasses. Sabrina says she invited Archie for dinner for no reason, as to think that she's just dating him on the rebound because he was the first to ask. And she doesn't think he's that ugly. Because if she wasn't desperate and unable to think things through before acting, I'd say that it makes no sense for her to give him a chance when she knows he's a clumsy, unfaithful idiot. She's literally surrounded with better guys to date in school. So I only like this because Archie's one of the main characters. He knocks on the door and Sabrina tells Hilda to change outfits. Why didn't she change their outfits? When Archie shows up, his clothes get changed. Hilda smirks while being corrected that she meant her outfit. So I hope this confirms that she knew what Sabrina wanted and was just playing around. She returns his clothes to normal, and he says that was weird. Sabrina tells him to sit and have a drink at the couch, and conveniently, he doesn't insist on continuing to comment about the magic, even though there's people dressed like witches in front of him. I guess it's because he either hopes he was just daydreaming or he's smart enough to know to play dumb near an obvious witch, just in case. I haven't seen a Sabrina story in this fantastic style in a while. It's just so nice to see it again. I expected the ants to just change outfits to humor her because they did in the 90s comics first issue, and in a Laugh comic story. But this is more realistic and in character for people so proud of their old outfits that they refuse to change them for this long. Of course she couldn't order her aunts around like that. Hilda zaps up some chocolate sodas in front of Archie. Probably just to mess with him because she doesn't want Sabrina dating a mortal again. What was that about witches being sent to magic jail if they reveal magic to mortals? That's just a strict thing in the Jughead's 2010 series. Because here, we're right back to the rest of the series, where a witch can get away with revealing magic. Surely someone would be spying on every witch at all times to keep track of their magic use. But they must not care about this. Archie sees the sodas floating, and Sabrina lies that it's a trick because her aunts are performers. Archie really should have known better than to risk it by calling their outfits ridiculous when the fact that they changed clothes made it obvious enough that they're dangerous, even if they are performers too. And besides, there's no way any performer could make sodas float to him after appearing out of thin air in her house. Sabrina tells Hilda no, but that doesn't stop her from making Archie float and fall into a summoned portal. I guess she only did that ridiculously dark thing because she knew Sabrina would save him anyways. Sabrina somehow decides to jump in after him and fly out of the hole with him. She could have just warped him back to her. I guess she thought this was cooler. He finally says they're witches. Hilda snarks, "Well, aren't you the smart one?" And Sabrina complains that she made her hide all of this from Harvey, and asks a stupid question about her exposing this to Archie, when it's so obvious that it's to scare him away. But yeah, wouldn't it have been smarter of her to scare Harvey away right away? She's dumb. She wanted to humor her with Harvey, but not Archie. Why? I assume she just doesn't trust him. I guess Harvey changed her. She says that he should know what he's in for. Archie's both a complete idiot and awesome by saying, "Well, you don't scare me. I like Sabrina, and I'll be able to put up with whatever you dish out." Conveniently, Hilda says she respects that, as I expected. He thanks her, but she loves mischief so much that she still summons some giant floating clown heads to scare him. I have to assume that Sabrina and Zelda can't put a lock on Hilda's magic, because if they could, they'd get her to stop right away, and they could have avoided the whole plot. I'm not asking why she didn't warp Hilda away, because it's obvious she'd just warp right back. But she could have just pointed to make her go to sleep. So yeah. I guess the reason she didn't do that is that she really wants a chance of Hilda getting to know Archie and warming up to him instead. Sabrina tells Archie not to think because Hilda can take his thoughts and use them against him. When of course she should know that that won't stop her. Of course, it's usually not hard for Archie to clear his mind. Sabrina tells him to think pleasant thoughts. Why did he think of someone who really scares him then? He just has no control over what he's thinking. He probably thought about someone who really scares him because he was thinking, don't think about something scary. And that can naturally lead to just that. So he ends up getting thrown out by a giant octopus with Mr. Lodge's head. Archie says he can't handle this. So Sabrina says she understands, and conveniently she already misses Harvey. She uses magic to make him forget the last hour and says they should just be friends. He isn't sure why, but agrees. This would make sense if it's because he subconsciously is still afraid of her because of that. She didn't have to say they should just stay friends if she can use a memory spell. Because she could have kept dating him, but never have him at her house. I guess she thought that was not an option because he'd ask her why. Then she could brainwash him into not questioning it every time, so no. It doesn't explain why he doesn't date her, because as long as they avoid Hilda's house, her beneficial magic would be making up for every problem that his jinx self brings with him and give him the best dates ever. Every time, as he discovered in the 70s comic. So the only reason it makes sense that they stay friends is that going through all of this because she wasn't with Harvey made her miss Harvey. And she thinks if he was here, he wouldn't be going through this. But she has no reason at this point to trust Hilda not to do this to Harvey if he comes back. This story, after being too lazy to explain Harvey and Sabrina's breakup, when it's so easy to assume he cheated on her, has Hilda scare Archie with magic because she's tired of Sabrina dating mortals. It's needlessly mean of her, making the story annoying. Though I did appreciate that she looks like she did in the 70s again, and has her trademark sassy personality back. It was just held back the whole time by the fact that Sabrina kept distracting me by not having black eyes. So I'm thinking that if you know we want to go back to the 70s style, why are you only going back to right before the Gravestone Heights days? Why didn't she do this with Harvey too? She was the type to humor her at first, but Harvey made her change. So I wish I was told why. It's just meant to explain away why Archie doesn't date Sabrina, but it doesn't really explain it, because Sabrina didn't have to invite him home for dinner. If she didn't want to brainwash him every time he asked why they weren't going to her house, she could have cast a sleeping spell on her aunts and zapped up fake aunts. The real problem is, this plot would have been avoided if Sabrina just cast a spell to put Hilda to sleep, but because she didn't, we had a story that was mostly annoying. I don't remember if Hilda got karma in most of the 70s stories, but she should have gotten karma. Transformation Traumas was by Tom DeFalco, and the other one was by Dan Parent. So if he's back, why doesn't he write all of the Sabrina stories now?